Okay, today's editing session is going to be what I like to term a filling the frame wildlife shot. So we got a polar bear here on the edge of the Hudson Bay in Canada, and this is the beginning shot, and this is the ending shot. And I really like how this turned out. It's one of my favorite photos of polar bears. It just kind of captures the calmness, the strength, the beauty, dare I say the purity. I don't know, they're pure white, something like that. But you can see where it started and then where it ended. So we're bringing out the reds, we're bringing out some of the whites, we're just doing some composition stuff. So there's not much to be done, but I wanted to start off by saying, when you see the original photo, it is very intentional to have it in the middle of the frame when I shot the photo. So the big difference is that I don't want to end with the photo with the bear in the middle of the frame. We want it to be a little bit offset, kind of aligning to the rule of thirds somewhere in that upper left-hand corner. But when I'm in a flurry and there's something really amazing happening very quickly and I want to nail focus, sometimes I will just zoom out a little bit, like shoot a little bit wider, and then put the subject in the dead middle of the frame, knowing I can crop later, right? Okay, so this is the ending photo we're gonna get towards, and let's start by opening the raw file. So here, I like to check my stuff here, ISO 100. Ooh, I'm so happy with myself when I shoot that. And notice where I'm at. I had a 100 to 400. I could have filled the frame in camera, but I was at 255 millimeters. But then, we're at 30 megapixels, pretty decent size here, 300 DPI. So we're good. F7.1, I know I'm going to get good sharp focus here. Remember, by zooming out and having an F7.1, I'm going to get more of the bear in focus versus if I were to fill the frame. If I used a 400 and then got the bear in the full frame, I might have needed to bump that up to F8 or F9 to get a bigger, deeper depth of field on the bear itself. So right off the bat, let's go ahead and, once we've checked out settings, let's go ahead and hit auto, see what it does. Okay, cool. It kind of brightens it up. I can definitely tell without even looking at the side panel here, it lightened up the shadows a lot. And, with these photos where I have nice angled light, I don't know if I really want to make a high dynamic range type photo. So I'm going to undo that. I'm not going to mess around with it. But the first thing I'm going to do is crop, because I don't want to be treating areas or really making judgment calls on the photo with more background than will ultimately be in my shot. So I'm just going to bring it in a little bit. I'm going to align it a little bit there. And, again, I could be perfect on the rule of thirds and put that right in the middle of the forehead, but I kind of like this balance, maybe just a little bit there. I don't want to get too much of the bear out of the frame on the bottom, so I'm just bringing in slightly, but I like all the fur. I like all the bear. But I think right there, aligning it more or less around that upper line is pretty darn good. So we'll hit enter, and then we're going to come over to white balance. Okay, next up, white balance. Let's just go ahead and auto, see what it does. Okay, so it cools it off a little bit. So not exactly what I want. So I'm just going to hit undo. And then I'm going to start treating the bear itself. So I am probably going to go ahead and do a brush tool. I'm going to hit K on my shortcut and then right bracket to increase the size. And I know I want to brighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to come down here and program a few things in, not a ton of brightening, but like 40, and then also boost the whites a little bit. And I'm just going to hold down and brush its face. So, and now I'm just clicking, just little touches here and there. I'm going to do a little bit of its neck so it's not quite so much of a harsh transition from the head to the neck. And, even though there's shadowy parts on the nape and the neck here, I'm not going to do much more. But what I am going to do, because the face is quite bright, but I feel like the eyes are kind of dim, is I'm going to go back to my main brush tool, create a new mask, do another brush, and then I'm going to increase exposure here a little bit. I'm actually going to boost shadows just slightly, and then reduce the size of this just to get around the eyes, because I really want the eyes to come out. They're a little bit in the shadows because of the way the sun is. And I really like that because, I don't know, it just helps me connect with the animal a little bit more. And I don't think it's too unnatural. I'm just continuing to brush a little bit on the shadows around the eyes. That's pretty darn good. I like that. So hit E to go back to my main editing pane. And what I want to do now is, in my mind, the reds and the browns of the tundra were much more pronounced. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my hues. And so we can see here we have reds and oranges. I'm just going to start experimenting to bring a little bit more reds out of that background. And that's good. The oranges, that's a little bit too much. But yeah, just around like that. And I might even saturate the reds just slightly. I definitely don't want to saturate the whole photo. If I did a global edit, the browns and the sort of dinginess, the duskiness of the bear would come out too much. So I don't want to do a ton. But I'm going to come back here, and now I'm going to treat the background. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select my subject, and it masks it quite perfectly. I'm going to hit X to inverse it. And then I'm just going to boost the background a little bit because I actually like the color of the background. So just coming up here ever so slightly, and I might actually just see what happens. Sometimes when you darken the blacks, it makes the colors a little bit more rich in a very natural way. And then you know what, just for the heck of it, we're going to go crazy with the dehaze slider and just see what happens. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. So I don't like that. Then I'm going to come back here and I'm going to come over here to the exposure and just go up on my keyboard, just little increments. And that's about it. So I could come over here just as an option, and I could come to lens blur, and I could actually blur the background a little bit more. It didn't do enough for me to warrant. And oh yeah, well, obviously, notice how we get really, really artificial kind of fringing right over here. So I'm not going to do that. I feel like the background is fine. I might do a little bit more. Come over to the background once again, click on that mask, and I might mess around the white balance and just warm it up slightly. Just, again, not much, but I'm just going to hover over here and just bring a little bit out there. And then, the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a subject mask, and I'm just going to brighten the whole bear because I feel like it's not quite as bright as I want. I'm just going to brighten it up slightly. Ooh, I like that. And I'm going to bring the highlights down slightly. And ooh, I like that shot. Very cool. So that's pretty much it. The final thing I might do, depending on how artsy I want to go with a photo, if this is going for a magazine or a catalog, you don't need to get too artsy. In fact, it benefits you to not. But sometimes I might do a little bit of a vignette and just bring the eyes slightly more towards the middle. And notice how on the corners it's darkening slightly. So I might just do like -4. I mean, that's barely anything. But notice how it just kind of centers the eye on the bear itself. And, that's really the shot. So we'll kind of do a before and after, before, after, before, after. You can see not much. I'm bringing out the reds. I'm adjusting the exposure and the whites of the bear, but I'm keeping it pretty darn natural. So would you have done anything different? If you have some ideas or questions or think you would have done something different, I'd love to hear from you. Editing is a constant learning process. We all learn from each other. So drop a comment below, and I'd love to hear from you, see what you think. What would you do differently?